Hey everybody, welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to be talking about everything I read in February and then going over what my plans are for March. So in February I did read 9 books. It's turning out that that's kind of my average, anywhere from 8 to 10 books a month. I'm just very grateful that in my situation with life and also with my learning style and how I do well with receiving information, audiobooks work really well for me. So some people are able to read that much or more, eyes only. That simply just wouldn't work for my life. But I'm very grateful that I am in a position that I'm able to audiobook and understand it and retain and comprehend the information. But also I'm in a situation that I have, my life lends itself well to a lot of audiobook time. And so I'm really comfortable in that range of about 8 to 10 books a month, it seems. I'm going to talk about March though in a little while because I kind of have a different plan for that. So we'll see how that goes. But let me talk about February first because I did read 9 books and it was kind of a mixed bag. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I read, well, actually, if you remember from last month, I actually finished the final Nevernight book on the first day of February. But I'm not going to count that. I'm going to count that towards January because I really did finish like the last 60 pages first thing in the morning on the first. So I'm not going to count that. But the first thing I read from start to finish in April was The Stone of Farewell by Tad Williams. And this is book 2 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And I am participating in a read-along that Mike is doing on his Discord channel. Mike's book review is the YouTube channel, and his Discord is where I spend a lot of time and have really established community, and I just really enjoy doing read-alongs with my friends there. So The Stone of Farewell was book 2, and I absolutely adored it. I really, really loved this book. I felt like it was well paced. There was one POV that was definitely my least favorite, but I still didn't even hate that. But it did kind of like drag the story a little bit when we went to that particular POV. But honestly, I really liked this book. And for a middle book, I still think we learned a lot. We made a lot of ground. And the whole story and the world and the lore was just really, really deeply enriched by everything we learned in this book. So I had a great time with book number 2. The next thing I read was Age of War by Michael J. Sullivan. And this is book 3 of Legends of the First Empire. And guys, these are just really fun to pick up. A lot of other people I know are reading these right now, and I'm getting different feedback from them, and they're not enjoying them as much as I am. It's very, very, very different from Raya Revelations, his previous series. So, and Raya Chronicles for that matter. So if you really go into this wanting more of that Royce and Hadrian, he's definitely trying something new with this series. And it's not going to land for everybody. I hear a lot of people saying that it feels much more YA or just less mature than Raya Revelations, and that very well may be true. And I was kind of resistant to that like YA reputation this was getting, but then I got to thinking about it, and I have not really read any YA fantasy, like other than, Harry Potter when I was a kid, and, maybe a couple other things that are kind of like questionable whether or not they would fall into that YA genre. I haven't read any YA fantasy, and I'm enjoying this. Like, am I loving it? No. Do I see that it has some problems I can nitpick at? Absolutely. It's not a perfect story, but I'm enjoying it. And so it makes me wonder, I haven't read any YA fantasy, and people are calling this really YA, and I'm like, maybe I like YA fantasy. I don't even know. So am I blown away by this? Is it going to end up on any type of top 10 list someday? No. But am I enjoying it? Absolutely. So I am going to be reading the next one in March, as you'll soon see. And so I'm interested to see where this story is going, what his plans are for it. But I mean, it's super different from my Raya everything, but I am enjoying it. Okay, next up, Guys, I still can't have enough good stuff to say about the series. I read book 3 of Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. It is called Destroyer of Worlds. And for some reason, that is the hardest title I have ever said. Every time I say it, I butcher it. Destroyer of Worlds. Destroyer of Worlds. I think I almost have a speech impediment when it comes to R sounds sometimes, and this one just like really trips me up. Either way, this book with this title was so good, okay? The first 100 pages or so were fine. Like, I was interested in where the story was going. They kind of picked up right where they left off with the last book. And with the last book, they got you somewhere that we've been trying to go this whole time. And so the first 100 pages was kind of like really embracing that idea and showing you where we were. And it was very, very interesting the way that the location was executed and like the fact that it was a secret and they managed to pull it off. It was all really, really good. But the first 100 pages were just a little like, okay for me. And I was kind of nervous. So I was like, maybe this was only like 2 books that I was super into. But then the last 2/3 of this book were awesome. And I'm telling you, like, he writes action scenes so well. And whether it is multiple people fighting or a duel or a battle, like, he's done all of those things so far. And the execution on his action scenes are like top tier. And in this book, in the last 50, 60 pages, I read 2 of the best fight scenes I've ever read in fantasy. Like, I've had several days, weeks to think about that statement because I said it immediately. And I'm like, am I overreacting? Like, am I just like really high on the mountain and hyped about this book? But I've had time to think about it. And I'm telling you that 2 of those fight scenes are probably the best I've ever read. And it's weird how they were like back to back. And at first it was like a bunch of people and then it was one-on-one, and it was just so exciting and so engaging. And I really want more people to read the series. So I think it's supposed to be a 5 or 6 book series, and it is like up to date right now. Like, book 3 is the most recent one. But from what I understand, Larry Corrêa is an author who like really writes and is very productive and puts out a lot of books. So I'm not worried about him, you know, jumping the ship and not coming back for years and years to the series. So I do wish I had another book to pick up right away because they're that good. Like, the way this one ended, if book 4 was available, I probably would have read it immediately. But I'm happy to wait for it because I like to have things to look forward to and anticipated new releases. So please read this series. Don't do that thing where you're like, I'm going to wait for it to all be out. Like, just enjoy yourself right now. Pick up book 1, which is called Son of the Black Sword, and read it and let me know what you think, because I wish more people were talking about this series. Okay, so I'm also doing another read along on Mike's Discord, but this one is being led by Scott, who is the bald booktuber. He is heading this read along up and he's doing a marvelous job with it. And apparently the number 19 has a lot of significance in the Stephen King multiverse, or maybe just this series specifically. I have not yet grasped the significance of 19. But either way, just for fun, we're starting this book every month on the 19th. And so it works out well because, you know, I'm doing Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and those books start on the 1st. And so then that gives me plenty of time to read other stuff in between, and I'm totally ready for Stephen King on the 19th. So I just picked up the Wastelands. This is the wrong book. Hold on just a second. This is the book I read in February. It's The Drawing of the Three. So Drawing of the Three is book 2 of The Dark Tower, and I loved this book. Like, I really liked The Gunslinger. I found it intriguing and interesting and bizarre and like really like made me think, and I really, really, really liked it. And I was really excited for more. But this book, to me, I was like, okay, this is what I'm here for. It felt like a Stephen King novel. And several people said this, and I couldn't agree more, that it, there were scenes in it that felt like watching a Quentin Tarantino movie, which, if you know anything about me and my movie preferences, like, it can't get any better than that. So the story just absolutely exploded, and I have no doubt that he'll continue to surprise me with the direction of the story, but this book gave me a lot more of a concrete idea of what the point of the story is, what the end goal is, what he's trying to accomplish, and the type of crew he's putting together. So like, I went from being like very intrigued, enjoying the book, ready to see more, to kind of being like all in and very, very excited. So The Drawing of the Three was awesome. Okay. What else did I read? Let's see here. I read several things on Kindle, and so I'm going to try to get through the things I actually have physical books here. I read Abandon by Blake Crouch, and this was kind of another impromptu read-along we did on Discord. And again, it wasn't like something we had planned for a long time. Mike just decided that he wanted to read this, and then our friend Steph was like, oh, I'll read it with you. And then a couple other of us were like, well, if you're reading it, I might as well read it too. So over the last year, a lot of us have been doing a lot of Blake Crouch reading. So far for myself, I've done Dark Matter, I have done Recursion, and I did the Wayward Pines trilogy, and I really, really enjoyed all of them. And so those are honestly his greatest hits. Like, those are the books that made him a household name. Like, the Wayward Pines trilogy has been converted to a TV show. And so those are easily his most famous, most popular books. And so, as Mike says, we kind of run a risk when you're working back through the greatest hits, starting with the best and working back through somebody's catalog. And so my expectations were kind of checked for this, because I was like, I do know I like Blake Crouch. I have a lot of trust in him as an author, but this was a book he wrote before he really exploded with popularity. And honestly, I keep telling everybody, I would call this book thoroughly fine. In true Blake Crouch form, he did the things that I want him to do. Like, it was very well paced. It was definitely a page turner. The story itself kept me guessing from chapter to chapter what was going to happen. There was two different plot lines, one that happened in like the 1800s with like prospectors and gold miners, and one that was modern day, current time. And it's exploring this like mystery of a ghost town where the people just completely disappeared. And honestly, the way I'm explaining it, it sounds like, oh, it was perfect and I really, really liked it. But in the end, I just thought it was fine. Like I said, I read the whole thing. I wasn't mad about it. I'm glad I read it. I enjoyed myself while I was reading it. I might even recommend it to people, but it's not a showstopper. It's not one that I think you should like stop what you're doing, pick this up right away. It was so good. It's going to blow your mind. It was a good story. It was a nice book that I'm glad I read, but there was something just kind of missing with the characters. And I think that's just something he grew in as an author, was character work. And I can even see that within the 5 books that I read and really, really loved of his. With some of them, the character work was a little weaker. That's not going to bother some people. I just happen to be a very character-driven reader, and there was just some stuff that went on in this books that I found kind of unbelievable, maybe a little corny, and the characters were just kind of like there to move the story along. But overall, I'm still glad I read it, and I think it was a very good book. So I also read The Alienist, and I do not have it to hold up and show you guys because I enjoyed it so much that I immediately had to loan it out to somebody so that they could talk about it with me, because I'm like, this book was awesome and I want to get it into the hands of other readers that I know. So I loaned it to my father-in-law, and I picked him because he is a huge Theodore Roosevelt fan. And if you guys don't know much about Theodore Roosevelt beyond his presidency, he is an absolutely fascinating person. And the author, Caleb CARR, found a way to write him in as a character in this book. And so this book takes place before he was president, or before he was even really involved in politics, when he was a police commissioner in New York City. And this book is it's a murder mystery. They are hunting down one of the like original serial killers. And the story is about a psychologist in the late 1800s who really pioneered psychological profiling and like understanding the mind of a killer and using the things you know about the killer and the things you don't know about the killer to narrow down your suspects and, you know, catch the killer. So this book was really, really exciting because it was a murder mystery. It had a lot of really cool psychological things. It had tons of great historical elements, and it was just a really neat amalgamation of, thriller, murder mystery, detective, historical fiction, psychological stuff. It was just really, really interesting and a great break from fantasy and sci-fi for me. I cannot recommend this one enough. Like, if you have even the slightest interest in historical fiction, or wanting to try something that's a murder mystery, detective book, thriller, you gotta check this out because it combines a lot of genres really, really well. And the whole book from beginning to end was just so smooth and the pacing was awesome. So definitely pick up The Alienist by Caleb CARR. It was very, very enjoyable. So a couple things I read on the handy dandy Kindle this month. I read A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And this book, you guys, I don't know if you've ever heard of John Carter. I hope you've heard of John Carter, but this is like the original sci-fi series. It is pulpy, it is cheesy, it is fun. So these books were written and published in 1913. And I can't even begin to get into like what that means. Like I'm reading these books and of course everything in here is going to feel very, very old-fashioned because it is. We're talking spaceships that look like pirate ships in the sky. We're talking green Martians with, you know, extra arms and antennae, metal-clad bikini goddess babes, you know, dudes with big muscles saving the chick and, you know, beating 1,000,000 aliens with one sword. Like that's all in here. But I promise you, like if you're looking for something that's just pulpy and fun and like fast-paced and just charming to the bone, you gotta pick these up. Of course, there's gonna be some stuff in here that you're gonna have to separate yourself from the time and place. Like I said, this was written in 1913. So there's gonna be some stuff mentioned that's probably a little uncomfortable to hear. But if you can completely separate the works and recognize the time and place that this was written in and appreciate it for what it is, because what it is just an imagination and creativity and probably some low-key genius at a level that was just absolutely way ahead of his time. And I've read one book, and as you're about to see, I'm reading the second one now, and I just have so much appreciation for everything that Edgar Rice Burroughs did for the sci-fi genre. So if you're looking for something quick and fun, but also want to read more classics, read things that are over 100 years old, to kind of appreciate what we love now, we have to understand where it came from. And this has been so fun for me. I'm really glad that I picked those up. The next thing I read on Kindle was pretty boring, so I won't get super into it. It was a book called Brain Hacks, which is about executive function disorder, which is stuff like ADHD and stuff like that. And it was a book that I read to hopefully like learn to focus more. And it did have a lot of really good hands-on tips, like things that you can apply right away that are really effective when they're done consistently. Nothing super groundbreaking, but it is nice to have all of those ideas and tips organized in one place. So if that's something you guys struggle with, like focus and things like that, even if you've never received a diagnosis like ADHD or something like that, if you're interested in like learning some little brain hacks that can help you focus and stay on track and just be more effective and efficient with your time, then I do recommend this. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's included, it's free. I did the Audible add-on because it was like $1.99 and I just can't turn up a bargain like that. So I listened to that and I read it as well because it does have like some workbook type things that you'll want to do like with your eyes, like lists and stuff, you know, checklists and stuff like that. So if you have Kindle Unlimited and that's something that's interested, absolutely pick it up because it was a really nice little book that I'm glad that I worked through. But yeah, it's not super interesting for this format. And then I also read Piranesi. So let's talk about Piranesi. I read this with a group of friends, just a small group of friends that we're trying to just kind of get together once a month and pick a book that's outside of our typical comfort zone and read it and discuss it together. And it's been really fun. But so far the books we picked have been kind of like not overwhelmingly loved by everybody. So we're going to try to do better next time by picking something that's going to be a little more of a slam dunk. Because the truth be told, I did not really care for Piranesi. And neither did anyone that I read with. Like we were all kind of varying degrees on our enjoyment, I think. But here's where I am with Piranesi. I do not think it was a bad book, and I would feel wrong if I gave it a low star rating because I think I can appreciate it for what it was. It just wasn't what I was wanting. It's not my type of entertainment. If you're at all interested in Piranesi, even after reading it and not really loving it, I would still recommend it to people because I think it was fascinating how it was executed. I don't think I've ever read a book quite like it before, so it wasn't a hit for me, but I can appreciate that it was really well done. And the more I think about it, the more I go, it was pretty cool. And I liked a lot about it. I just didn't enjoy it, if that makes sense. Probably not. I don't think that makes sense. But in my mind, like that's how I see it. There was a lot to like about it, and I think it was well done. It's just not what I was looking for. So if you've read Piranesi and you're like, what? Because for the most part, everyone I know who reads this book is like, this is genius. This is the greatest thing I've ever read. It blew my mind. And for me, I just thought it was, I don't know. If you know me in person and you've read this, like we should have a conversation about it because I think it was just a little bit like, woo, even though it definitely wasn't actually over my head because everything that like happened, I knew it was happening before it happened. So I think maybe my mind just wasn't in the right place to really like, you know, delve into all the layers and the meaning and I just didn't have it in me. So I read the book, it was fine. That's kind of where I am on it now. So let me know what you thought of Piranesi. All right, let's get into what I plan to read for March. I mentioned that I'm hoping to do something a little different in March, so we'll see how this actually pans out. Because like I said, I've been reading about 8 to 10 books a month, and that's been a pretty comfortable pace for me. But this month, I actually only have 4 books that are on my like TBR, and I'm really enjoying some TV right now. Like I started Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm watching Black Sails, and I'm trying to get back up on Attack on Titan. And so I've got a lot of things that I'm really enjoying with TV, and I don't typically watch a lot of TV. And so while I'm like, you know, in the middle of some series that I'm enjoying and having fun with it, I'm kind of thinking about putting my reading not on hold or anything like that, but a lot of my evening time that I typically dedicate to reading, I'm thinking about watching some TV this month. So you're here for book talk though, so let's talk about what I'm reading. I am reading the first half of To Green Angel Tower by Tad Williams. This is of course book 3, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Now, the reason my brain was confused and called it 4 books is because, as you can see, this is the biggest freaking book in the world. And so in the read-along, we are dividing it up into 2 parts. And I guess originally when this was published, it came out in a part 1, part 2, and 2 actual books. So we're dividing this up into 2 books. And at first I was resistant to that. I wanted to read the whole thing. But I'm enjoying the series so much that I don't want to risk kind of like resenting it or like reading it out of obligation or getting kind of bored with it. So I am going to read To Green Angel Tower Part 1. I'm already a little ways through it and I'm enjoying it quite a bit because I think I love Tad Williams, you guys. So after that, like I said, on the 19th, we are planning for the Wastelands. I'm really looking forward to that because I didn't say it, but if I'm going to pick one, Drawing of the Three would be my book of the month for February. So that leaves me very excited for the Wastelands. And I say I'm going to start it on the 19th, but Kingdoms of Death, book 4 of the Sun Eater saga, one of my most anticipated releases of all of 2022, is coming out a few days before that. So I might rearrange my reading schedule a little bit because both of those books, reading them in March is a huge priority to me, and I'm very excited for both of them. So Kingdoms of Death, guys, Christopher Ruocchio, the Sun Eater series. If you're not on the hype train yet, jump on. This is the year of the Sun Eater series. He's releasing Kingdoms of Death at the beginning of the year, and Ashes of Man is going to come out at the end of the year. So we're getting 2 Sun Eater books. I'm very excited for that. Congratulations to Christopher Ruocchio on what's going to be an amazing year. And then Age of Legend. This is going to be book 4 of why do I always do this? I can never remember the name of this series off the top of my head. Legends of the First Empire, Age of Legend, from Legends of the First Empire. It's a little redundant. Anyway, I'm going to read this one as well. This will be a nice break because, as you can tell, I'm reading some like pretty heavy books. The Wastelands, Kingdoms of Death, and To Green Angel Tower are like huge, big fantasy books. So it is really nice to break it up with something that is lighter and kind of just for fun. So I might read, the other thing, so I guess it's 5, is I am also reading The Gods of Mars, which is book 2 in the John Carter series that I was telling you guys about earlier. So I don't have a lot planned. And here's the thing, I might look back at this video and laugh, or I'm going to record the same video next month, and maybe I do end up reading more books. But it is nice to just do that, to give yourself permission to go, you know what, usually I'm not much of a TV watcher these days. You know, for the past 2 years or so, books have been my #1 source of entertainment. But it is nice every now and then to go, you know what, like I want to watch some TV this month, and so I may only read, 4 or 5 books. So that is what I have planned for this month. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know below. I want to know, what was your favorite book in February, and what are you most looking forward to in March, and why is it Kingdoms of Death? So have a great day, and like I said, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it.